Be a good blooper right away, right?
I love bloopers.
All right, so we're live.
Okay, here we go.
Go.
All right, welcome to the heated Oops.
Welcome.
Welcome.
How now, brown cow?
All right, there we go.
The
Get
arsonist.
them linked up. Okay, here we go. Welcome to the heated Percula, the Wolves Den here at Park Tav. Thirsty Pups here for another watch party. I have myself, Casey, Shay's over here. We are blessed to be joined by Running with the Wolves podcast from Believe, which is Gabe Anderson, Chris Emerson. You may have caught us yesterday with them on their podcast. They're gracious enough to introduce us to their fan base. And then we got our main man right here, our main manager, Christian, and he wants to say a couple words about lovely Park Tav. Sorry.
Basically, at the end of the day, Park Tavern's always been about community. It's always been about making people feel safe and happy when they're in the building. It's a blessing to have these guys here. These guys are absolutely passionate with what they do. I love working together with them. And it's just the Wolves deserve to actually have the passion kind of brought out to them with no official actual bar in the state of Minnesota for them. So we're very blessed to be working with them, and we want to make sure that the community, like basketball, not liking basketball, understands that we're one for one. We love everyone, and we're going to make sure that people's passions are actually brought out and successful at the end of the day.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thank you, Christian.
Yeah, thank you, Christian.
Absolutely. And that is, like I said, our main kind of go-to manager, Christian. We also want to thank Phil, Terry, Cheryl, as well as Zach, the other managers that we work with, and then the lovely staff here at Park Tav as well. Right. We're also brought to you by Stilly and Michelob Ultra and Capital Beverage and Sales. So now we're going to pass it over to Gabe and Chris. First off, though, Shane and I were kind of curious to learn a little bit more as to how the podcast came together with Believe.
Sure.
And maybe give us a little quick backstory of you guys, how you guys either know each other, your Wolves background, and so forth.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So we actually did not know each other in life. Like before, what was it? It was before COVID, right? When we started the podcast? Yeah, we did not know each other at all. Basically, I had the idea. I was like, you know what? I want to start a podcast. I want to talk about the Wolves. And it wasn't a great time to start a Wolves podcast because they weren't good. They hadn't drafted Anthony Edwards yet. Right. Things weren't looking up. In fact, looking at our former name was Everything's Coming Up Timberwolves. Okay. So we were thinking like, hey, maybe we can jumpstart this process, this team a little bit. And so basically we were both in a Timberwolves Facebook group. Okay. Where I would post stuff and we would chat back and forth. And I basically put out a cold call like, hey, does anybody want to start a podcast? Does anybody have maybe a background in speaking or think they would be good for this? So I basically put out a cold call for that.
I think what it said was, does anyone want to do a podcast? Like that was it. That might have been it. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do one. So, sure, I'll shoot. I'll talk. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and so what happened was it was actually me and another guy, me, Chris, and then another guy, Jared, who was with us for a while. And let's be honest, our first couple of years it was rough. We didn't have mics like this. We were just on makeshift computers. Yep. Sometimes we'd have guests on that were just like horrible quality, like cutting in and out all of the time.
Like us, huh?
Yeah, no. It was
video quality even. Like,
video.
Lose the whole conversation.
Right. We had some guests who were just didn't. We're just, you ask them a question and they're just like, yeah, okay,
right,
yeah, I think that Ann is good.
Right.
I think he's a good player. But yeah, so eventually we were doing it for a while, and then we got reached out to by this company called Believe. Yep. And they were like, hey, we do a bunch of podcasts, we do a bunch of stuff. Would you want to fill our Wolves hole because our Wolves guy is gone? We're like, yeah. So we hooked on with them. We've been doing it ever since, and we've been having a great time. We tried to do at least twice a week. Yep. For the most part. Whether it be game recaps or we do just full podcasts. Sometimes I'll just jump on and just do a game recap. But yeah, it's been fun. And Chris, why don't you talk a little bit about what you've liked about doing the podcast?
It's just, just a way to get your ideas, your thoughts on the Wolves out, really. It saves me time where I'm not having to type in the chat group as much. I go, I just, sometimes that takes away my work, I mean, I never do it at work when I'm at work. But yeah, exactly. Just get your words out. It's just
Yeah.
comfortable, easy. Like me and Gabe have a good connection. It flows well. Like he just basically hits me up and says, "Hey, you want to do a podcast?" And sure, and then that's it.
And we have a good dynamic, I feel like, because think of me as like a Brock Purdy. I'm like a game manager, right? Like I'm like, okay, we're gonna talk about this next, this next. And and then I throw it to him, and he always has an answer for it. He might say once and think about it for a little bit, but he really just knows how to get going with it, and that's what I've really appreciated by doing with you. All I have to do is throw you a topic, and you already have something. And we've got a couple things like you'll learn if you listen to some of our shows. We're not the biggest Slow-Mo and Jaden fans.
Okay.
We've talked about that.
Okay.
And it's really fun to kind of go back and look at some of our old podcasts. Just not only where we've come, but where the Wolves have come too.
100%.
Like I remember there was one, like we did a positivity podcast. It was the year, I think the COVID year.
Sure.
And we were just like, hey, we won a game against the Clippers. And that was like the main highlight. We're like, hey, we're 8-25 now. Awesome.
Right.
Let's talk about how good Jordan McLaughlin is
Right.
for a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then it's cool. Like we've done like playoff podcasts. We've talked about all this stuff. But man, it's just been a fun. I think it's like 3 years now, right?
Yeah.
So it's just been fun, and we're glad to take it to the next step here, kind of doing a live podcast here and getting to know new people, and yeah, we're just super excited.
And before we forget, at least for our fan base as well, where can they find you for your podcast? Where you guys all located at?
So yeah, you can find us on YouTube
Yep.
at Running with the Wolves PC.
Okay.
Also, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, really anywhere podcasts are. Just look for Running with the Wolves, and if you can't, and if that doesn't come up, just look for a Timberwolves podcast after that. So Running with the Wolves, a Timberwolves podcast, You'll be able to find it. Yeah, that's pretty much where we are. We're also on Twitter, Facebook as well. You can join our Running with the Wolves podcast group. Yep. And yeah, we're all over the place.
Awesome.
So
Nope. I just want to make sure that we get that out there right away. So.
yeah, no, we appreciate it.
Yeah, and we had a ton of fun going on their podcast. So if you guys want to go check that out, we talk a little bit of hoops. We really throw some names out there with Wolves big men at the end. So
We went down a rabbit hole.
We went down a rabbit hole, but let's get into some of the nitty gritty tonight with Portland tonight. It's tough, when you got back-to-back matchups with the Trailblazers. You're on the road. So what are you guys looking for out of the Wolves tonight to maybe, a lot of times they could be, not a high energy, not a high intensity in these situations. So for me, I really want to just see them come and close this game out early, have that intensity right away, and then get our all-stars and Coach Finch off on this weekend on a high note and going in with some momentum and rest, right? So,
go ahead, Chris.
I mean, I think that's something that Rudy Gobert pretty much settles every night is he's going to come on, he's going to come to the game, play hard. He's going to give it full effort. I think that's huge. What I'm looking for is just ball movement. Like use it as a scrimmage. Like we don't need to have any one player try to score 100 points. And I don't think that that's going to happen anymore after what's kind of, the whole cat fiasco.
Yeah.
So I think, and, even Anthony Edwards has taken a lot of heat from coach and the media, and even, players have kind of been hinting around like, man, it'd be nice if we moved the ball more in our offense, hint. So I think just keep working on that, moving the ball. And I think Rudy's going to solve the, not playing hard thing. I think that's –
He brings it every night.
He brings it every night, and it's hard. And I think it's just hard to not – we've talked about this on podcasts a lot. There's certain guys that when they're playing that hard, it's like you kind of feel like a jerk if you aren't also trying hard.
Yep.
So it just ups the game for everybody. Mike Conley, too, same guy that I don't think that we should have any more lazy days for a while with what we went through when we had a couple.
Right, and some I was noticing just looking at some of the stats.
Yep.
I feel like if we get anything offensively out of Jaden McDaniels tonight, I feel like we're going to be okay. I mean, he didn't score a single point against Portland. 0 for 7, 0 for 3 from 3, and 2 rebounds. I mean, that's not for a guy you're going to be paying $25 million next year. You got to expect more out of him. But on the flip side, you got to look on how well he did against Anthony Simons. I mean, 6 for 9. He did hit 4 threes, but Yeah, there have been games where Anthony Simon just kills us, particularly back when they had Damian Lillard and Anthony Simons. I think that Anthony Simons is struggling as the number one option.
Sure.
And I think, like, when you look at the Blazers on paper, they don't look like that bad a team, at least on the front. Like, you got Malcolm Brogdon off the bench. You got DeAndre Ayton, who we saw in last night's or 2 nights ago's game was solid. You got Scoot Henderson. You got
Sharp.
Shady.
Robert Williams is hurt right now.
Yeah,
That's
Robert.
another big, right?
Yeah, you got
Jeremy Grant,
Jeremy-
almost an all-star type player.
Yeah.
He had a game of like 43 recently. You know what I mean? So 100%, absolutely.
So yeah, I don't know. When I look at the Blazers, I just think it comes down. They just don't have the depth on the bench. They don't have it right now. And I don't know if they keep like not succeeding here like they have. I think Chauncey Billups could be on the hot seat pretty soon here. I
mean, he hasn't really ever shown that he deserves a long leash anywhere. I mean, he doesn't have a pedigree like that. I think part of the problem, like everyone talks about the AAU culture of how that's killing the NBA because, and there's some people recently, I forget who the coaches were talking about it. They said in the first 2 or 3 years of the NBA, they're teaching guys stuff that is like high level high school, low level college, basic NBA stuff. And like the guys you read off on that Blazers team, I mean, a lot of those guys are kind of what I would blindly look at as AAU culture type guys. So other than Brogdon, who do you have that knows how to like play NBA basketball?
Right.
And I think when it gets to the way that there's so much talent in every team now, like every team you read off their roster, you're like, geez, these should be I mean, every team has talent like that.
Right.
So you have to now get guys like Rudy Gobert, Mike Conley that show how to set a pick, like how to play hard every night. So I think teams like Portland can beat anybody, but
routines and being a professional and how to eat. A lot of these players come in so young now too, and are put into such big roles, you know, and coming out of college or high school, you think that on a night-to-night basis that you don't need a lot of these things or it doesn't add up. But going through an 82-game season is grueling on the body. So to have someone like Mike Conley who is so good at that stuff, you can see like Nas has taken care of his body. Ant's changed his diet. And now you see the longevity starting to kick in.
Cat
as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you see Cat working out with Rudy all the time now too. And it seems like this team is conditioned. It's healthier. It's sustainable. And so having that veteran leadership on this team, I think has been huge for us.
Yeah.
Looking at that Portland team, look at their top, like who the guys that you would say are their stars right now would probably be like Scoot Henderson, probably be that. Like guys,
taking him a while to get going.
And I'm not saying stars as players, but like these are who you want to market your team after. Right now, Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, and I would say Sharp. And how many days of college do those 3 guys have together? 0. None of them went to college. They went G League or like I think Simons was basically out of high school. I think he was like some sort of like weird exception thing.
Yeah. Was he G League or like G League?
No,
he wasn't.
I want to say he had some weird thing, but like I don't know. But either way, he didn't play college ball. You know, like these guys, those kinds of rosters are hard, I think, to actually get wins. Look at Denver or Detroit is like that.
LaMelo went to Australia and played, right? Now you see a bunch of different routes, and maybe LaMelo got a good glimpse onto being a professional even before he came into the league. But LaMelo's transition then from playing in Australia to the NBA, it was like he was a star right away. So it's like
sometimes talent takes over.
Yeah, that's true too.
And another thing I want to see out of tonight's game particularly, I just want to see the progression of Monte Morris. Now, we know that he is probably a little out of shape. He only played he only played 6 games as with the Detroit before. I mean, he only shot 18% from 3. So I'd like to see him hit a few threes because if we can get to a scenario where we only need to play Jordan McLaughlin when we have to, like someone's hurt, Well,
he's a great spark plug, Jordan is. But the whole point of getting Monte, right, was, you know, more of a vet, right? Been in more winning culture, winning games, playoff games. And then on top of that, better 3-point shooter, because that's the biggest thing we've all been waiting on with McLaughlin, right? Like I know a couple games ago or wherever it was when he had 2 or 3 threes, like that was a great moment. But what you like with Monte is he also has the size, right? And that's a big thing, right? He's 6'1", 6'2", whereas McLaughlin, maybe with a whole lot of notebooks underneath his shoes, is 6 foot, right? So I think that's a big thing, and that's why I was really excited about getting him, because that shored up a very big need for our second unit.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nikhil, I almost see him more as like a 2-guard almost a little bit. Like I don't think he's like that. We saw what he needs to do last night. Like just hit threes in the corner. That's exactly when you have someone like Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns who are driving the lane constantly. Yeah. You need someone to kick it out to.
Yeah.
And
he's been so good at that.
Yeah. That's what I was saying too. Like what I really enjoyed about that fourth quarter and like where we really blew that game open, right? Yeah. So you had a fun lineup of basically a no point guard lineup, right? You had you had Ant, you had Slow-Mo, you had Nas, you had Rudy, right? Yeah. So the floor spacing was there. They're pushing it a little bit more than having Conley walk it up. Obviously not hitting 3 straight threes and going 4 for 4 in the fourth was huge. Right. But I think the big aspect of that was now that with a lineup like that, Cat, Jaden, Conley, and even Monte, right? Kind of your vets. I know Jaden's young, but they all got to rest, and now they're at fresher legs tonight, than they need to, because they basically didn't play in the fourth quarter, right? So it was just a fun lineup to watch, because that lineup is a lineup that does share the ball. I mean, as long as Ant's not playing iso ball, that was a good lineup that they were, moving around, finding the open shooter, good cuts by Nas in the basket.
As long as the ball's moving. That's all. I mean, those kinds of lineups work as long as the ball's moving.
Yeah. Yeah. So I had a question for you guys. I want to kind of get your take. So, since we saw it last game, I think you have the stats up. I think Aiden was something crazy, like 11 for 12. I mean, mid-range and layups.
Right.
And he's getting balls. He's getting some friendly rolls and so forth. Yeah. But I do think it is really interesting. So Aiden is kind of that type of athletic big that I feel like is the one type of center that does give Rudy a hard time at times, right? Yep. Because not only is he quick on his feet, but he pulls him away from the basket, right? So now you take away the block shots, take away some of those defensive rebounds, but then also he was hitting that mid-range, right? So I guess from you guys, like who are some of the other bigs in the league that you kind of notice that you see that, okay, this could be a tougher game for Rudy tonight, either on pick and rolls or getting pulled away from the basket?
Anyone physical, like Valanciunas, tough matchup. I mean, there's guys that do like the same thing Rudy does, like even Robinson from New York. Like I mean, because if you can hustle rebound Rudy, that takes a lot of his game away, so there's guys that can have specialties, that do that. Aiden, I don't worry about because he doesn't have much heart. So like you might get hot and have a good game, but if something goes wrong early the next game, you're going to have 1 point. But effort guys are, I mean, Rudy's basically, like a tall version of, Vanderbilt. Yeah. Like hustle and effort is what he wins with. He's just 7'1" of it, and Vanderbilt's 6'8" of it. So like that's the difference. So like if he runs up against another guy that's physical or has that kind of effort, it really gives Rudy trouble, But then they just battle, and it's fun to watch.
And I think I'll let Gabe jump in too and give his answer. But what I think too is, I mean, the beauty with the Wolves is even if Rudy does have a tough matchup, the beauty with us is that you're going to still have Cat on the floor, Nas on the floor, one of the two, if not all three, right? Even if he pulls them away,
need Garza.
Exactly. So even if he pulls them away from the basket, like you're still going to have bigs that can also help protect the paint. But I was like thinking of like an Anthony Davis is another one.
Yeah,
too. Like,
that's what I was
when Rudy's on him, right? Like
Wemby gave him a bunch of trouble. I mean,
he did shut down Chet pretty good though.
Yeah.
And I think just the physicality that Chet isn't there yet. But I think in the future that could be an interesting matchup.
Right.
Like, Rudy, he takes it personal, right?
That one more than I've seen almost ever for some reason, and I think it was just a respect thing. But
and I was going to mention Anthony Davis for sure. I mean, and it's really the guys that anyone's going to have trouble with, like Anthony Davis, Wembanyama. He's had some trouble against Bam Adebayo just because he's got good. Yeah, he's got so quick. He's got good footwork. So that's a tough matchup, but. Man, I like Chris was like, I never worry about it.
Sure.
Because like he brings so much like he clogs up the paint. So many times guys like attack the paint, and it's almost like they're doing a dribbling drill because they're not going to go up against Rudy Gobert because they're afraid they're going to end up on SportsCenter with a monster block. So, like I said, I don't really worry about big matchups. Maybe when it comes to the playoffs,
Sure.
we'll have to look at that. Like if we play the Lakers in the first round, or let's be honest. If we get the Nuggets at some point, no one's stopping Jokic anyway.
Yeah.
In fact, I've heard the way to stop Jokic is to get him into the shooting mode
100%.
anyway.
So
So
not moving that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then other people aren't getting their shots up. Nobody's getting hot. Nobody's cutting to the basket, right?
yeah,
Another thing I was going to bring up to you guys, I want to kind of get your guys' feedback on. So at least something that I've noticed, there has been talk that, these last 4 or 5 games, right? Not only has our defense been solid, but we're starting to see kind of that uptick. When Finch came, offense efficiency, points, all that was, top 10 in the league, right? And
Right.
then now everybody's like, oh, we got the greatest defense, but why is our offense still sitting at 17, 18, 20, overall, right?
Yep.
But one thing I will say that at least I've noticed a lot of last game, but even the last few wins is, Ant being a lot more assertive, right? Quicker decisions, getting rid of it.
Mhm.
Not so much, the between the legs dribble and iso ball to then throw a grenade to somebody.
Yep.
And then the other point I mentioned earlier before to you guys too, but was, I do think that what you're seeing is a little bit more of slow-mo either being a little bit more of a harder guy to guard and more offensively minded, where maybe isn't scoring as much,
Right.
but quicker decisions of driving to the basket and either putting up that 5-foot floater or kicking it out.
Yeah.
Anything else that you guys are seeing as far as what you think is making our offense kind of come together and starting to click a little bit?
Yeah, and I think for slow-mo, the big thing is just making quick decisions.
Yeah.
Like it's okay. Now it still bugs me every time he gets a wide open three and thinks about it.
Yeah.
It's got to be in the NBA. You only have 24 seconds to score,
Yeah.
right? You can't take 3 seconds thinking about maybe shooting and then dribbling because A, the defensive shot is caught up,
Yeah.
and B, like how much time do we got on the shot clock? And it takes forever to get to the lane anyway.
Yeah.
So that's 7 seconds of our 24 seconds.
Yeah.
That's a third of it. So I just think for slow-mo, just better. Like, know what you're going to do. You got to expect I'm going to get the ball wide open because Ant's driving,
Yeah.
Cat's driving. I'm going to get the ball wide open. I need to know what decision I'm going to make immediately. And I think that's something he's done well. And like I said, Jane McDaniels too.
Yeah.
Like he's got to start hitting corner threes.
Yep.
If he wants to be a $25 million guy, he's got to start hitting corner threes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ball movement, like we were saying. I mean, Anthony Edwards, it seemed like it happened to Karl Anthony Towns, I think maybe his 3rd year, where people were saying, remember when they were like, oh, he's going to, if you could start any team over from scratch,
GM,
you would
25
pick,
and under,
anyone in the
yeah.
NBA. They were saying Cat because he was young and he was this superstar. And not coincidentally, soon after that, he started playing bad and, being hero ball and whining a lot more to refs and stuff like that. Some of that might have been what was happening to Anthony Edwards for a bit this year, where like he's the next MJ,
Right.
he's the next this. And I get it, he's young and he's, got a shoe, I think there was a period of this season where he was over dribbling and that was killing everything. Like we don't have a lot of good good scorers on our team. We have 2.
Right.
We only have 2 like NBA level scorers really on our
Right.
team
Get you a bucket when you
at all. And I would even say Karl Anthony Towns, like he's really not a kick the ball to and let him go to work. He's more of a you do the work, kick it to him, he'll finish it at an elite level. So maybe just 1.
Yeah.
So without moving you have to move the ball or else those other guys will never eat,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Anthony Edwards had some down games where the press got on him and the media got on him. And I think that is what's really helped us the most. And just getting back to like what Finch says, are you going to pass it? Are you going to drive it? Or are you going to shoot it?
Yeah.
Make that decision right away and then get off it. And then Karl Anthony Towns taking more threes.
Yep.
Like he
Yep.
needs to take
100%.
8 a game. Like
100%.
you'll see.
It should be 44%. Like, what are we doing?
Well, I mean, and there's people that are not worthy of taking 8 a game that are taking 8 a game that are big. It's like there's no reason why you shouldn't be doing this. And the moment he starts, that's when everything starts clicking because so much more. He's not good at he's not good at much else really offensively. Not to be a jerk, but like that's your best
I'm a
thing.
Cat fan, but
I mean, he's great, but like you're not throwing him to the post because
Well, he's still got a nice jump hook. I mean, he
yeah,
still
if
shows
he
it.
can get to the block, but if a 2 guards on him, they'll body him out to the 3-point line. Like, unfortunately, so shoot that 3, spread the court. Like, all that thing is helped.
Before we wrap this up, and but I do have two quick stats because obviously we talked about Jaden. 2 things that we want to see tonight, right? Talking about Jaden.
Yep.
When Jaden shoots 50% or better, the Wolves are 20. I believe it's 22-5 right now, or 23-5.
Wow.
So I mean, it doesn't even have to be that he scores 20 points, right? But it's just if he can have a 5 for 9 type of game, right? Hit a couple corner threes, maybe get some putbacks. The other one that we're looking for tonight, we want to see Nas. What is it? 25 games in a row with the 3. 26. So we want to see him get another 3 tonight to be up to 27. Yeah. I was trying to look up what the Wolves' record is. Yeah.
First shot.
I was trying to figure out what the Wolves' record was to see if he has the record or he's got the current. I know that. But
Corey Brewer had a run a while back that was like 70 games or something out of control. Correct. I remember there was some weird one.
Awesome.
Yeah, I want to touch on something Chris said too. One of my coaches told me when you move the ball, it gives the ball energy and good things happen, right?
Yep.
And so just moving that ball, and also, talking about and dribbling so much, you've seen the last 5 or 6 games. Now he's had 7 to 9 assists in the last couple games, and putting that good energy and that positive energy into the ball, it's going to do good things for the team. But we're getting close to tip off here, so you still got time to get down to Park Tavern. We got special guests here from Running with the Wolves, Chris and Gabe. We're doing a ticket giveaway thanks to Stilly. We got gift cards that we're giving away, and I think we'll be back at halftime.
Halftime.
Back at halftime doing a Q&A, so make sure you get your questions in the Facebook group. But other than that, you guys got anything else?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I just wanted to thank you guys for having us out. We're excited for a fun night, and go Wolves.
Go Wolves, baby.
Let's go.
Awesome.
All right.
We'll see you guys.
Nice work, guys.
Yeah, good job.
I suppose I should have waited.